Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe. Share with a friend, colleague, relative, associate, enemy, any and all in between. I appreciate it. For anyone who joined me on the live stream yesterday, thank you very much. It was tough doing over 5 hours by myself. It's not something I want to do that often. It's not something that I do often, sort of those live stream events. But hey, it was such a big event. I mean, it was only right. And I probably got in at the right time to get a little bit of traction, because every single channel had their own live stream, to the point I was on my other phone actually checking in on some of those. I just wanted to make sure that I clicked the like and gave a view to everyone. So shout out to Ring IQ, shout out to Boxing Beats and Rhymes, G-Man Boxing, he jumped on later on in the night as well. October Red, Undefeated Podcast, they did an impromptu live, which I wasn't expecting. I mean, to be honest, I probably think it was smart really to assume that they would have, but they didn't announce it, didn't tell me. So who else? There was probably a couple others. Those are the ones I remember off the top of my head for people that I follow. There might have been a couple others as well. So yeah, I was literally flicking. Danny, Fight Fan TV, Danny and Lex, they went live as well. Big up to them. Yeah, I jumped in every single live, left a comment, left a like, just to say that, I'm in the building, supporting you, even though I'm doing my own thing. But yeah, hopefully some of that was reciprocated back the other way. But if not, it's all good, doesn't matter. Yeah, let's talk about the event. A long night. In some aspects, it was longer than it needed to be, because some fights ended very, very early. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go through the card. So, opening bell, Frank Sanchez versus Junior Farf. Now, this was one of those fights where I said it was kind of a pointless fight, but it wasn't the worst fight of the night, because at least it would be interesting. And it was for a few rounds. Frank Sanchez was very cautious in the first couple of rounds. Junior Farf was almost trying to just control things behind a probing jab, lead hand jab, which Frank Sanchez was a bit wary to enter past. But he found his range soon enough, caught Junior Farf, I think it was in the 5th round to start off with, dropped him. Then in the 6th round, it was a bit of just slow, steady pressure, beating him up. Then in the 7th round, dropped him again twice, gets up, referee waves it off. So, I mean, look, Frank Sanchez won the NABO, that America's title, and the WBC America's title as well, Pacific Americas or Continental Americas or whatever it's called. He's taken a lot of backward steps since the FAA Jagba win. Really and truly, he should have been facing Filip Hrgović or someone else of better standing on this card. But he moves forward now. Now he's in the Saudis' radar. He can't have another gimme fight, for lack of a better word. I mean, Farr was, he was willing at least, but it was a gimme. He needs to move on and move up. Next, we had Filip Hrgović versus Mark de Mori. Now, actually, with the Frank Sanchez one, I think I predicted he would stop him in the 10th round, because Farr can be durable depending on, obviously, the type of opponent he's in there with. And Frank Sanchez isn't necessarily the kind of guy that comes forward and, really just lets his hands go. But he did it at the 7th, so 3 rounds earlier than I predicted. Now, this is the interesting one for me, just in the terms of my prediction. On my predictions league, I put that Hrgović would KO de Mori in the 1st round. Then, when I went onto my betting slip, I saw the odds for rounds 1 to 2. Initially, I had rounds 1 to 3, and they voided the bet. I don't know why every betting company voided the bet, but so I had to change it. So I go, okay, well, I can't trust Filip Hrgović to knock him out in the 1st, because he sometimes does that. He just sort of labours. So I had to bet 3 to 4. Now, when I saw the press conference and he's talking about, now that he's talking like this, it's personal now. So now I must punish him. I must hurt him. I thought, do I change? And something was telling me, change it to 1 to 2. But I just had this feeling that de Mori might be able to just hang around for a round or 2 and then get taken out in the 3rd round. And either way, I predicted it would end within 3. But he beats Mark Mori in the first round, as expected initially. I should have stuck with my original idea, but those 11-5 odds were very appealing. That being said, yet again, we have another episode of the Rabbit Punch Chronicles from Filip Hrgović. Now, some people say, oh, well, Mori turned away from him. Well, that's not actually the case. If you check it, I'm not even talking about that first knockdown that happened. I'm talking about after that. Hrgović he goes to land a straight. Mori ducks away from it, and as he ducks away from it, Hrgović punches him to the back of the head. Upright again. That at this point he's half turned to Hrgović, and he punches him again. Mori is complaining to the ref, even to the point where the ref said, look, watch the back of the head. And then eventually he hits him again, and then as Mori is about to go down, he goes to hit him again, but then actually stops and then changes the trajectory on the other hand, and then the ref finally jumps in and waves it off. Now, I don't have a problem with the ref waving it off, because Mori was done. He was finished. He was never supposed to be in the ring to begin with. It was a farcical match to put up. I still don't know who allowed it, who sanctioned it. And it's funny because at the end of it, even Hrgović said, yes, so this is always supposed to be how this one happened. This is more just keep busy for me. And then all of the commentary finally was like, yeah, he was never ever supposed to be in there. They was never supposed to do anything. Well, if we all knew that from the start, why are we playing like post-fight quarterback rather than just admitting they never should have allowed the fight and we just need to have better level of competition? No one's saying that Hrgović had to fight the who's who because he's waiting for his title shot. We get that. But there are guys, better, more credible guys that you could fight. As I said, why not a Jermaine Franklin? Why not a Jerry Forrest? You know, why not a Jonathan Rice? You could run that fight back. Like those would be, you know, good fights to have, rather than a 5'11", 6 foot Mark Mori who has no wins of consequence in his entire career. He's 41, has, you know, basically fought nothing but club fighters his entire life apart from 2 times, and those 2 times he didn't win. Yeah, it's anyway, I want the AJ Hrgović fight now, because Hrgović had as Jay-Z would say, had a spark when he started. Now he's just garbage. Apart from those rabbit punches, everything else about Filip Hrgović is lackluster at this point. That's the only thing I give him. He's got the killer instinct with punching to the back of the head. Every single fight, he's hitting people with the back of the head, and somehow the refs still don't see this and don't, you know, admonish him, take points off. By now, realistically, he should probably have 3 disqualifications on his record at minimum. But yeah, maybe that was the Sauerland and the Wasserman magic to start off with. But hey, next, Jael Patel versus Ellis Zoro. Now, another one that went horribly wrong. But as I said before, when I spoke with Jael Patel, he said, look, he's going to actually relish this fight because it's going to give him a chance to show more of his boxing skills. Because obviously Zoro is a totally different type of fighter to Jordan Thompson. I mean, I think he lied. I always knew that, and I said in the preview that he's probably going to try and obviously box and show some of that. But as soon as he smells blood, he's going to go straight for it. And rather than even sort of boxing and showing that he's the superior boxer, he's gonna try and plant that backhand to the body in the first round. If he gets that timing straight away, he's probably just going to throw that out the window. And then I think on my predictions league, I predicted round 7, but I think on the video I chose that, I think between 5 and 7. On my betting slip, I picked between 5 and 8. And the thing is, in the first round itself, look, Ellis was very cautious. He was basically not really biting on anything initially, and then he started sort of biting on the feints, but he wasn't moving his feet. He's normally quite fleet-footed and has got good movement, but he was holding his feet in the center. Now, I don't know if that's also because Jai is southpaw, and I don't know how many southpaws Ellis has fought in his career, but it just looked like he was almost like he was trying to stand his ground and show that he wouldn't necessarily be bullied, especially early on. He threw a couple of punches, nothing really landed of note. I think he did manage to connect with one jab and maybe I think a backhand to the chest or whatnot. But every time Jai was throwing to the stomach, Ellis would try to swat it away. But he was keeping his shape, but he wasn't moving his feet. He wasn't being in and out enough. And ultimately, right at the end of the round, you hear the clapper go and you think, okay, he's coming out of this first round, maybe just getting warmed up. And then Jai, it's almost when he throws, he throws the arcing shot, but he throws it as if it's about to go to the body. And in the last moment, as Ellis is expecting it to go to the body, because that's where Jai's been aiming for the majority of the fight, he changed the trajectory all the way to throw up top. So the eyes looked at the body first, and Ellis brought on the feint of the eyes, didn't move his feet, bang, to the chin, nasty knockout, hits the ropes, just out on the floor, like cold after the first round. I didn't expect it to go that soon. And as much as Jai is levels above Ellis, like, I didn't see a first round KO. To be honest, I don't think anyone saw a first round KO. He's always acquitted himself much better than that. It was just a case of, I can't say he froze in the moment, I don't know, but he made a mistake that you can't make against elite fighters, and it clearly obviously does show that he's on one level and Jai is many levels above. Like, Jai is living in the penthouse and Ellis is like on the third floor, if that. And yeah, it's a shame. It will be interesting to see, obviously, how he rebounds. Obviously, he's going to go back down to his regional domestic levels, or maybe, like, you know, to fight some nondescript European opponents to get a few wins back. But this was more about securing the bag for his daughter and the family, so I understand it. And as I've said before, I don't really ever think he'll get to that legit world level. So because of that, I mean, he started really late. So that being the case, if anyone was just going to take an opportunity like this, you know, to fight for a title, at least to say that they competed for a title, he probably done the right thing. And to a lesser extent, even though it was over in one round, and that might hurt the pride, it might be better for him, because in the other video I did say I almost don't want him to go to the cards, because if he does, and that's just 12 rounds of punishment, does he really want a 12 round beating? Because he will get beat up. Like, there's, even if you go the distance, like, Jai leaves his mark. And maybe the silver lining for someone that obviously knows Ellis, knows his situation. I was speaking with my cousin about this last night, who's Ellis's best friend. I won't say what we were necessarily talking about, but just in my opinion, I think that maybe the first round thing might be the best thing, that you actually haven't really taken any damage. It was one flush shot. Like, you haven't got any broken bones, broken nose, eye sockets, no swellings. Like, you walked out the ring the same way you walked in. Yeah, that may be the best course of action. So commiserations to him, but obviously Jai Alphataya levels above. Need to see what he does moving forward. I hope he manages to get another world champion in the ring back in March in that next Saudi Arabia card. After that, we had Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Ajit Kabayel. Now, you know what? Full credit to Ajit Kabayel. One thing about Ajit, because he hasn't been fighting anyone of any great note since the Derek Chisora win, it's always hard to know where he's still at. Does he still have the drive and desire? Like, is he still the same guy? Has he let his tools dull over time? And with Makhmudov, we can tell that Makhmudov doesn't like people that move or that can sort of get inside and have good head movement, because he tries to throw, he either throws a looping left, right, or he throws the big bolo uppercut. But his movement itself has always been a bit poor. Now, this is one I got wrong, and I'm quite happy I got this one wrong, because Ajit, you know, he's obviously shown that he's of a good standards. He's of that European level, whereas maybe Makhmudov hasn't actually proven that he's on a certain level than other people as of yet. He's had a lot of devastating knockouts, but a lot of his opponents have been nondescript, which I've also acknowledged in the past. But the one thing I thought would happen in this fight is that Ajit Kabayel would be winning the early rounds, but because of the movement, might start to tire, might even get caught with something sort of in maybe round 3-4, which sort of makes him back off, and then eventually the power might just start to wear him down, because if for nothing else, Makhmudov is a destroyer. That's you know, there's no other. He's very basic and limited, but like, he is a destroyer in what he does. But I know they sometimes say you've got to bully the bully, like you've got to fight the fighter at sometimes, and Ajit Kabayel, he did that. He was smart in the first couple rounds to allow Makhmudov to throw his really big punches. He was fleet-footed, got out of the way of those, but he was investing stab jab into the body, throwing hooks to the body, beating Makhmudov up top as well. And yeah, he took Makhmudov's legs away from him by the end of the second round, because by the third round Makhmudov was gassing hard. And then yeah, so now, you know, you had Ajit Kabayel just walking him down, just beating him up to the body, beating him to the punch, like hooking with a hooker, but he was too quick, dipping underneath Makhmudov's shots. And yeah, Makhmudov, he went down once in the third, gets up, finishes that round, goes down another 2 times in the fourth, all to body shots, nothing to the head, because Ajit Kabayel cracked him to the head several times and Makhmudov just kind of shook them off. But that body work, as they say, man, nobody likes it to the body. And yeah, but he had no engine. So it makes you wonder how hard he was really training for this fight. Did he really like put in that hard graft and that core work? I don't know. I'd have to suggest no, because you don't go into a fight like that and be gassing after the second round, especially when you went 10 quite hard rounds with Carlos Takam. So yeah, it was a big upset in one sense, but Ajit Kabayel proved that he deserves his credit. He deserves why he had been in those talks with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And I always thought that those were just supposed to be tune-ups, and maybe they were viewed as tune-ups. He clearly didn't see it that way, and now I guess we've got to talk a bit better on his name. So congrats to Ajit Kabayel. Done well, done the thing. Now, Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. Now, obviously, this was the fight of the night for most people. This is the one with the most intrigue. Like, did Daniel have the intestinal fortitude to come through, the pressure that was no doubtably going to be put on him? Like, if he gets leaned on, gets the battery drained. Now, a lot of people initially were everyone thought it was supposed to be 12 rounders, but it was only a 10 rounder, which does sort of change the mindset a bit, because if you're in a fight for 7 rounds and then you're starting to get tired, but you know that there's only 2 rounds or 3 rounds to go, the mentality is a lot different than if you know you're starting to get tired but there's 5 or 6 rounds to go. Like, can you survive that? And it was interesting to see, because in the first couple rounds, like, you saw Daniel Dubois is moving a lot, very good footwork, but he's on the back foot. He's having to move on the back foot. He's not that good on the back foot. His power doesn't translate, because he has to set himself so that he can launch a shot forward. He can't really launch off of the back foot. But he was popping out the jab. He was managing to sort of keep Jarrell Miller at bay. But then he started to do was starting to work and try to jump in on the inside while Miller's walking forward. And Miller's just basically pushing him back towards the ropes. And Daniel's he's physically trying to push Miller off of him. But by that's just exerting energy. And after those first 2 rounds, you saw Daniel Dubois was breathing extremely heavily in the corners and in the ring. His mouth was open. Miller looked calm, he looked comfortable, he looked fine. But then when Miller started to throw punches in the sort of the second, the third, he also started to do his little hop, skip and a jump to try and get into range. All of a sudden, his gas tank started to deplete a little bit. And while Daniel it looked like it was starting to get on top for Daniel a little bit. But Miller now starts to breathe heavy. So even though he's walking forward, like the third round, he looked okay. The fourth round he was starting to take in those deep breaths. The fifth round, he was really trying to take in the deep breaths but stay calm. But by that 6th round, Jarrell Miller's mouth was open in the corner. Like, he was gasping. He was gasping for air. And all of a sudden, even though Daniel was looking mad tired before, now it's almost like, oh, he got his second wind. He saw that Miller was tired, and now, okay, maybe I can get through this. And I think sometimes when you see that someone's more tired than you, it pushes you on to carry on and do better. And I think that's what happened with Daniel in this fight. And yeah, credit to him from there. Even though Jarrell Miller was, he's throwing those sort of pity-patty arm punches to try and just upset Daniel's rhythm, just trying to walk and trying to grab him, just hoping that he can tire him out before he loses the rest of his gas tank. Daniel, at this point, he started almost not falling for the bait. He kept moving his feet, did extremely well in this moment. And then he was finding the shots. He was catching Miller in between the shots, but Miller, very good chin, very, very durable guy. And then in the last round, you see them both, all right, they're both trying to go for broke. And Daniel Dubois is just beating him to the punch yet again. To the point, I think he lands a uppercut to start off with, and it's the first uppercut that actually sort of wobbles Miller a little bit. But Miller's just out on his feet at this point. He's just tired. It's not even so much that I think the punches was hurting. I think he was just tired and exhausted. I feel like if those same punches that were landing in the 10th were landing in the 5th, he still would have taken them quite comfortably. It's just he had no energy left. And then he gets hit with a right hook that careens him onto the ropes. He starts to sort of straddle the ropes. Daniel jumps in with a bit of a salvo. Miller manages to block a couple of them, but some get through. Then another couple get through, and then Miller, he just doesn't throw back. And then he dips his head down, gets caught with one as he's dipping his head down. And at that point, referee jumps in, and Daniel manages to get a stoppage with 10 seconds to go of the fight. Big ups to Daniel. And you know what? More so than big ups to Daniel, big ups to his missus, because she's put a new lease of life on that brother. He went from Pinocchio to Yu-Gi-Oh in one sitting. I don't know what she promised him. I don't know what she gave him, but he is loving life right now. And some people said it might have the adverse effect. Nah, it looks like it's done him the world of good. It's done his confidence the world of good. He looks like a different animal now. Now look, we still got those old, there are the other situations in play. We give grace for the first one. The second one, maybe not so much, but he has shown that he can come through this crisis and come through the pressure and show out on the other side. Now we just need to see this continue throughout his next fight and his next fight and his next fight. But I don't want him rush back to the world level. I feel like he needs to sort of stick around, not maybe the British, but just that European level. Maybe even win that European title if he can, defend that a few times. He's 25 now, 26. So another year and a half, another 2 years. Don't even have to challenge for a title again until 2025, like maybe 2026. And he'll still be one of the younger heavyweights around. Just hone your craft. Just keep working with good quality opposition. None of the, the Fujimotos and the Latis and the Tetes, none of those, but just decent level operators that, you can just keep building against and keep building your reserves and the rounds. And I think he'll go quite far. This could be the rebirth of Daniel Dubois. And if it is, I'm here for it. Ultimately, like I said, I wanted to pick him, but I just couldn't because of the history. But he's done well, and he's acquitted himself well, and he's almost sort of repaired his reputation a little bit. And I'm happy for that. Like I say, it's a local lad. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's cool. So yeah, moving on. Hopefully he can step up and show us more and more as the months and the years go on. Then Dimitri Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. Now again, got the right person, but I legit thought this was going to be Dimitri Bivol's first KO. In 6 years, and purely the main reason for that is because number one, obviously we all saw Lyndon Arthur had whatever little injury that he was carrying going into the initial press conference. 6 weeks maybe wasn't the greatest of time to be able to make the weight and everything. And sometimes he can be a bit negative, so okay, well, even if he's in the corner, like he's maybe just trying to survive more than anything else. But I thought this Bivol, especially with the fact that hasn't been in the ring for over a year, maybe he might not want to take this to the distance because he doesn't know what his gas tank's going to be like. Well, he said in the post-fight press conference, he wanted to push on a couple of times, but he wasn't sure if he would have the power to do so. And I think by power, he meant the energy, the reserves. And he said because Lyndon also had good power in those moments. So he's talking about the gas tank. And so he unloaded a couple of salvos, but every time, rather than press the action and keep the hands moving, he would jump back out basically to get some breath and reset and retain his energy reserves. Now it was frustrating at times because you could clearly see that he was just winning everything comprehensively. After sort of the first 5 rounds, it was clear that he was winning the jab. He was winning the jab battle. He was winning the stab jab battle. He was winning the body punch battle. Like Arthur was just sort of very negative, just riding along the ropes, basically just trying to. It's almost like he was either trying to find one slip counter or he's just trying to survive the rounds. And in that moment, people just never sort of pressed on until maybe round 8. he might have started to press a little bit in the 8th round, but he just never really pressed the action. He landed a couple of salvos. I think one was in the 9th, and then he took a rest in the 10th to sort of regain his energy. But still popping the jab, still just outworking Arthur just enough. And then in the 11th, he catches Arthur with several big body shots, some shots up top as well. Arthur was managing to block and roll a few of them, but the body work was doing its job, and eventually he ends up going down off of a body shot. But it was right towards the end of the round. And then as he gets up, the bell goes, so he gets back to his corner. And at this point, you think, okay, Dimitri's going to step on the gas in the 12th round and take him out. And he does try towards the first part of the 12th round, but then you can clearly see it looks like he threw about 6 or 7 punches, and after that, he jumped out and didn't throw again much, and for about 30 seconds, 40 seconds, it definitely like he had punched himself out at that moment. Then he went back in for another salvo a little bit later on. Arthur weathered that storm, he jumped back out, and then Arthur actually started to try to press him a little bit towards the end of the 12th round, but it did go all 12, and ultimately it was a 120-107 scorecards for Dimitri Bivol. Like, he won every single round, barely dropped any seconds of any round. It was an extremely comfortable night, but it just wasn't the statement night it should have been, especially in Saudi, with all the eyes of the world watching. It wasn't a poor performance, but it wasn't what it should have been. It wasn't, and that's no knock on Lyndon, but Lyndon even showed in there that he wasn't not mentally, he wasn't physically in the best shape for that fight. If they had both had like a 8 to 10 week camp, the fight could have been a little bit different. Maybe Bivol would have got the stoppage. Maybe Lyndon Arthur would have actually done better with more time to prepare. But for the time that they had, and for what he put up, it was basically he was there to be taken out if Bivol decided to step on the gas, and he just didn't. So it wasn't lackluster in that sense, but it was uninspiring. That's what I will say. And he's got to do better in his next fight, 100%. Then we move to the co-mains. Now on this occasion, Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. I predicted Joseph Parker would win, but I predicted he'd win by knockout, and by knockout in the 9th round. And it was either the 8th or the 9th round when he rocked Deontay Wilder with that big overhand right. And, that big salvo, he was snapping his head back. But Deontay Wilder, because he's so tall, he got away with it because he's so much taller than Joseph Parker, and he's got such a longer reach. Even though a lot of those shots were connecting, he was able to literally lean back over the edge of the ropes with the turnbuckle and make Parker miss, because Parker just wasn't long enough in range to catch him. If someone tall, if that was like, say, Anthony Joshua or Francis Ngannou or even Tyson Fury or Arslanbek Makhmudov, for instance, like the range of those punches, a lot of those would have connected. But Joseph Parker, he held centering from round 1 all the way to round 12. So he made Deontay Wilder have to sort of work and find his angles. He was closing the gap on Wilder, but I didn't like the fact that he was too far out a lot of the time, which would give Wilder enough time to have that extension if he was going to throw the punch. But clearly he never really throws it until he's touched with the jab hand, just so he knows that you're in range. You just touching so he knows you're in range. But Wilder was just hesitant to do that. In those first few rounds, I wasn't. Joseph Parker kept throwing the overhand right from very far out, which I didn't like. I thought, okay, you keep doing that, you will end up getting timed. But Wilder never let his hands go. As we've seen, Wilder only lets his hands go against limited opposition. Anytime he's been in there with like better opposition, it's very, very circumspect. It's very aware of the danger coming back. And even though he's been able to land that backhand on a lot of those people, it's maybe one time in a fight or 1 or 2 times. And if he doesn't get them out, it's almost like he's a bit lost. Having said that, he usually does manage to land it, and that person goes down. In this occasion, he's just getting out hustled, he's getting outworked every time that he tries to throw the backhand, especially sort of in those mid to late rounds when he was finally starting to let it go. Joseph Parker would dip underneath it. He's got he's got height on his side to where he can actually get under the trajectory, because Wilder is used to throwing it from shoulder to chest length. He's not really used to arcing it down, and that's where he was, his timing was off. He was struggling to land that, and he doesn't have inside power, so he had to have full extension on that shot. Parker knew that, so Parker was pretty much just beating him up throughout the rounds. Nothing, there's nothing major up until I think the 7th or the 8th. But then I think it was in that 9th, it was either the 8th or the 9th round, where he throws one big salvo at Wilder. And then I think maybe in the 10th round, he does the same thing. He throws another big salvo. And at that point, it's just, you can just see that, all of a sudden at this point, Wilder, it's like the ideas are just dropping out of his head. He doesn't really know what's going on. And that's where we say to yourself, boy, it's getting on top for Wilder. But then in the last round, he tries to go for broke to say, because this is the last moment to win the fight. For some reason, he thinks he's ahead. I don't know where he gets that idea from. But you then get, he starts to try and be a bit more aggressive. But even in being aggressive, Joseph Parker still managing to beat him to the punch. He's managing to sit on his chest, not giving Wilder any room to move. And yeah, it ends up being a very, very comfortable unanimous decision win for Joseph Parker. 2 of the judges somehow managed to give Deontay Wilder 2 rounds, and I don't know what rounds they were. Maybe you could say that he won the 12th just by way of like trying to push the action, but other than that, I've got no idea where that comes from. So when you look at it, you say to yourself, boy, maybe it's he's washed, or maybe it's like I've been saying, you have to look at the quality of opposition to really determine where you put him. Yes, he's always been able to land the backhand, but who is he landing it against? Prior to that fight, I put it out there for everyone. Deontay Wilder's KO ratio against top 10 opponents was 40%, and that's Luis Ortiz. Outside of Luis Ortiz, Berman Stavern in the first fight when he fought him, he walked through Wilder's power. Wilder didn't KO him in that first fight when he was actually viewed in the top 10. Then you got the Ortiz fights, and then the 2 Fury fights in the second and the third, because Fury wasn't even in the ring top 10 from the first fight. He got back into the top 10 after the draw with Wilder. So you look at all of that and you say to yourself, well, boy, opposition and your level of competition really does matter. So finally, like I've been saying, as soon as he steps up against anyone credible, he's gonna come unstuck. Even if he manages to win, which realistically he hasn't thrown his hands properly since like 2013 with the Stavern fight anyway, and maybe Spilker and those guys. After that, everything is all about just waiting, timing, and just waiting for one opportunity to land something. So I feel pretty vindicated, and that is yet another PBC engineered fighter that as soon as they come out of the PBC bubble or fight someone who is non-PBC, they get badly exposed as so sorely lacking. Now, at least on this one, everyone knew that Wilder was extremely limited in what he does. They just knew that he had that one trick, and the one trick was great, right? But now you got someone who's actually able to nullify that, and he's now talking about potential retirement, saying he's good. Like he said, I'll see y'all again soon, but even if I don't, it's been wonderful or whatever. Now, to be fair, I'm not gonna put too much more sort of criticism on him, because ultimately we all know he came into boxing purely for his daughter, right? To make money for his daughter. So I credit him for that, and he's an overachiever, because having that title, like getting that title and even keeping it for as long as he did, even though he again very carefully matched opposition, like it's commendable. But that being said, he was never what people thought he was. And I'm glad that the facade has finally been lifted. And not more so than that, I'm also glad that now the WBC have got no excuse to have him as number 1 in their rankings, or the WBA. Because this guy didn't fight in nearly 15 months, and somehow he got a number 1 spot in the WBA rankings and managed to get a number 1 spot in the WBC, coming off of 2 back-to-back losses after that. And those 2 back-to-back losses was in a 3-year span. All of that, just like crazy. So the corruption can now come to an end, which is brilliant. But yeah, ultimately you had Deontay Wilder. You look at the resume, forget that, but factually, ran from Derek Chisora. They announced a press conference. He didn't show up to that press conference. Ran from Povetkin. And everyone's going to say, oh, but he was going to go to Russia to fight Povetkin. Everyone forgets he was going to go to Russia because he lost the purse bid and had no choice. Povetkin failed for meldonium, which had only just gone on the ban list at the time. Now, this is the very key thing, which most people don't bother to fact check. Meldonium had only just gone on the ban list, I think, the month before, and you were allowed to have a certain amount of it in your system to be able to compete. Obviously, it got flagged up that it was in his system. It was under the legal limit that you were allowed to have to compete. And as soon as they found out that that was in his system, they ran back to the States. Povetkin's team, the World of Boxing team, Vadim Kornilov and all of those guys sued Al Heyman, the PBC, and Deontay Wilder, and they got a settlement out of it. I think it was about $10 million they sued, because obviously they had put on the event, and then the event they had to cancel it. They sued and they won the case, because it was shown that he should have still fought Povetkin, because Povetkin was within enough of a legal limit of what meldonium he had in his system, that the fight should have still taken place. Feel free to Google it if you don't believe me. This probably now puts paid to the narrative that it was Anthony Joshua that has been ducking Deontay Wilder for 5 years. And look, I don't even really want to talk about Joshua like that, because it all of a sudden makes it seem like I'm a big Joshua fan, which isn't the case. I respect him. I respect his record. I respect what he's done in the game, but I'm not a fan of his. To be honest, I was more a fan of Deontay Wilder more than I was a fan of Anthony Joshua like before. Now I'm just like neutral to either, but I don't like when the narrative seems to get run that Joshua has been scared and running from Wilder, when his whole team has put 5 different offers out to Wilder. Wilder turned down $120 million from DAZN to fight Joshua, to go and fight Luis Ortiz again. And Dominic Brazil, who DAZN was prepared to pay for the Brazil fight as well. All of that, plus the 4 offers that were given to him to have the fight at Wembley Stadium for like 5 and 6 times the amount of money he'd ever made before in his career. He's talking about he wants 50-50. The videos are out there when he said, yeah, I lost my pen. That's gone. At this point, I don't even care about the belts. It's not about the belts, because I've got the most prestigious belt, the green belt. I've got one of them. I'm the only one that delivers the action. So it's 50-50 or no fight, knowing that it's never going to be 50-50. Hopefully now the narrative can get put to rest. We move on to the final fight of the card, Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin. And I predicted that Joshua would get the knockout. Now I predicted he'd get the knockout in the 8th round. He did me 3 better, just like Sanchez. Knockout in the 5th, or after the 5th. Wallin is retired on his stool by his corner. Gamache is not going to stop this fight. Now people saying, oh, because Wallin didn't protest, he was okay, cool. If he's complicit in it, but I still won't say he quit, because he never said to his corner, pull me out, I don't want to carry on. He just accepted that they was going to pull him out of the fight. Now, okay, maybe that means the fight got beaten out of him. That's cool. But that also doesn't mean that he quit, because even Joshua said in the ring, I think if his corner had let him come back out for the 6th round, he would have come out. I think he would have. I mean, he knows the writing's on the wall, but he didn't ask to be called out. So to me, it can only be called a quit if you actually ask to be pulled out, as opposed to your corner just making the decision for you. Because I've always said, most of the time, there's no point if the corner have made the choice, why are you really protesting? It's almost like if you get fired from a job, like, what are you protesting? Unless you've actually got legal grounds to have a tribunal, there's no reason to protest and argue and beg to stay, because they've already made the decision. Like, I'm sure that's basically the same with everyone. So, but this was Joshua at his hybrid best. He was working behind the jab. He was, throwing the right hand to the body. He was slowly breaking Otto down, but he was trying to go for the gusto from earlier. And it makes me go back to the interview that he had with Laura Woods when she said, well, what are you most excited about in this fight with Otto? He said, the punches I can land. Now, clearly, to me, that means that he remembers from the amateurs and the sparring, the kind of positions he got Otto Wallin in those fights, and saying, oh, if I land those same shots on him with smaller gloves and no headgear, this could be a very fun time for me. And he's always made mention that he wants to fight an Otto Wallin. Why can't, he never really gets those easy gimme fights like Tyson Fury. Like, why can't he get an Otto Wallin? And that just shows me that he's been very confident about that fight from ever since he spoke about that fight on several occasions. So it had to have been a fight that was on his mind, on his radar. And ultimately on this one, it paid dividends. Everyone says, he doesn't look that good against southpaws. No, he didn't look that good against Alexander Usyk, who can make anyone look bad. But what did he do to Charles Martin, who was also a southpaw? Stopped in the 3rd round. What does he do to Wallin? Stopped in the 5th. So maybe he likes southpaws as long as their name isn't Alexander Usyk. Food for thought. But he said now he wants to be 3-time world champion. Eddie Hearn did admit that they did have the Wilder fight signed for the 9th of the 9th of March, and they was going to announce it in the ring straight after the fight. That's now out of the window. So he, I think, will either be looking to fight Filip Hrgovic for that IBF if it becomes vacant, or Eddie Hearn ultimately wants Tyson Fury to beat Usyk and Usyk not to invoke the rematch, so Anthony Joshua can fight Tyson Fury for the belts that way. But chances are that's not going to be the way that one plays out. In terms of my predictions, I got 6 out of my 8 correct. I got 5 of the methods correct. One was obviously went to decision. I didn't expect it to go to decision, so got that method incorrect. I got all the others correct. I thought every fight was going to end in a knockout, to be honest. But Ajit Kabayel surprised me, beat Arslanbek Makhmudov, and I did pick Jerome Miller to beat Daniel Dubois. And there were moments where it looks like that could have happened, but Daniel Dubois came through. But all the others I got correct. I'm going to sharpen up on the next one. You guys know Inoue is coming up on the on Tuesday, so definitely we'll be speaking about that one also. But yeah, that's pretty much the weekend wrapped up in a nutshell. I've probably spoken for a lot longer than I wanted to. Apologies, I do that. It happens. But this will definitely be the last video on the channel before Christmas and Boxing Day. So with that being said, a Merry Christmas to everyone watching. Feliz Navidad for all the Hispanic speaking community that may watch the videos. Have a happy Boxing Day. If you go to Boxing Day sales, be safe. Hope you get everything that you guys want. And hopefully at some point next week we will speak again. But next week, or more so than everything else, I reckon the awards are going to start from about next week, Wednesday or Thursday. So look out for those. There's going to be quite a few being doled out. But until then, as I said, Merry Christmas, people. I will catch you in the next video. Stay safe. Peace.